My name is Margaret Ellison, a woman in her 60s. Many call me Mrs. Margie, a name as familiar as the breath of old years. I spent my entire life in a small wooden house on the outskirts of the Midwest, a place once filled with family laughter, summer evenings scented with baked apple pies, and the endless chorus of cicadas. Time passed, and everything changed. My husband, Arthur, passed away a few years earlier, leaving me with the large house and a gap that never filled. After an illness that weakened my legs, I no longer had the strength to prepare every meal, mow the lawn, or drive to the store as I used to. So I moved in with my son David and his wife, Elena. I thought it would be comfort, a place to lean on, a new home as old age approached. But faith is not always rewarded. From the first day I crossed the threshold of my son's house, I noticed Elena's gaze. It wasn't warm or gentle. It was as cold as a winter draft slipping through a cracked window. I heard sighs when I asked for a glass of water. I saw brief furrows of the brow when I climbed the stairs slowly, and I felt a silence that stretched when the whole family sat around the table, so quiet that the spoon clinking a plate sounded like metal falling on tile. I told myself, maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe Elena is just busy. Yet inside me, a vague unease stirred, a sense that the days ahead here would not be easy. On a gray, early autumn morning, with drizzle in the air, David took me to the familiar clinic in town. The place smelled faintly of antiseptic. The plastic chairs were cold beneath my back, and the pale fluorescent lights washed over everyone's faces. Dr. Kramer, who had been following my health for years, entered with a thick file in hand. He looked at me kindly and spoke slowly. "Margaret, your condition requires long-term care. I recommend you sign a medical and personal care power of attorney so your family can make decisions in emergencies. That will be safer for you." I took the paper. My hand trembled slightly as I read the dry lines, words as cold as small knives cutting at my dignity. Full power of attorney, granting decision-making authority. It felt like a period at the end of the independent life I had fought to preserve. I looked up, searching for my son's eyes. David avoided meeting my gaze, and only nodded slightly, signaling that it was the right thing to do. I heard my blood pounding in my ears, slow and heavy. I swallowed the lump in my throat, picked up the pen, and signed. The moment the pen touched the paper, I heard laughter, a small, cutting laugh coming from Elena. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to make the whole room tremble inside me. Elena crossed her arms over her chest, a flash of triumph in her eyes. "So it's done. Now you belong to us completely." Those words thundered in my chest. I tried to keep my face composed, but inside, an invisible blade sank deep into the last of my pride. I had hoped for a place of safety, but in that instant I realized I had just handed the tether of my life into the hands of people who did not truly want to hold it. I offered a faint smile, a smile meant only to hide the sting. But inside, a slow-burning fire had already started. In the days after signing, the atmosphere in David and Elena's house changed little by little. I no longer saw hesitation or restraint in Elena's eyes. Instead, there was a brazen ease. One evening, while I sat in the living room pretending to watch TV, I overheard them whispering in the kitchen. Elena's voice was cold. Each word fell like stone. "Your mother's old house still has value. If we sell it, we'll have enough to pay off the loan and upgrade this place. She doesn't need to keep it." David was silent for a long time before answering, his voice hesitant. "I know, but that's Mom's memories. If we sell it then," Elena cut him off sharply. "You worry too much. She gave us the authority. Once the legal papers are in our hands, she can't do anything. I sat motionless. My heart pounded. My hands trembled. That house was more than land and bricks. It was my memory with Arthur, the place where I raised David, years of youth marked in every crack in the wall and every worn wooden chair. The thought of them wanting to sell it felt like someone squeezing the air from my lungs. That night, I could not sleep. I opened the small drawer of my desk and took out the stack of papers the doctor had given me the day before. Reading each line carefully, I suddenly noticed an important clause. The grantor has the right to appoint or change the agent at any time, provided they retain sufficient legal capacity. My eyes brightened. A crack of light opened in the dark room. I exhaled, both relieved and wounded. Elena had laughed at me, believing I was powerless. But they were wrong. My mind remained clear, and my heart had never surrendered. The next day I called an old friend, Harold, a retired lawyer who still knew the procedures well. His voice was low and steady. "Margaret, you are more lucid and clear-headed than many I've met. Don't worry, there are still ways to protect yourself." I gripped the phone tightly, feeling that my hand no longer trembled as before. In my chest, the small flame from the night before had now ignited into strength. From that moment, I prepared in silence. I listened, observed, and waited. Every disdainful glance from Elena, every weary sigh from David, every greedy whisper, they all became fuel to build my determination. They thought I was a burden, but soon they would see. That day came sooner than I expected. It was a late weekend afternoon, the sky strikingly clear. Elena dressed elegantly, in a deep red dress, her makeup flawless. David busied himself cleaning, preparing to welcome a few close neighbors. I sat quietly in a corner, watching the scene unfold. They wanted to show off, to display how they cared for me, how he was a dutiful son, and she a devoted wife. I could see the pride shimmering in Elena's eyes, the way she placed her wine glass on the table and smiled at each guest. When the chatter was at its liveliest, I slowly rose to my feet. The room hushed, every gaze turned toward me. My heart pounded, yet my voice was calm, almost unnervingly steady. "I have a small announcement. This won't take long." From the doorway, Harold, my old friend, appeared, holding a black briefcase. His presence froze Elena in place. Her smile stiffened. David looked bewildered, and the guests began whispering. I took the papers Harold handed me, opened them, and lifted my head high. "I have decided to transfer all rights of care and property management to someone else. From this moment, David and Elena will no longer be part of those decisions." The air thickened instantly. Elena's face turned pale. Her eyes widened. Her lips trembled, but no words came. David took a step forward, his voice breaking. "Mother, what are you doing?" "Why—" I looked straight at my son, then shifted my gaze to Elena. My eyes no longer carried fear. They were firm, cold, and bright, because I still have the right to choose. And I will never hand over my fate to those who see me only as a burden. Elena looked as though cold water had been poured over her. The guests were silent. No one dared to speak. In that tense air, the only sound was the pen scratching on paper as Harold completed the final signature, sealing my decision into law. A heavy silence lingered for a heartbeat. Then I set the pen down on the table. My smile was calm, but inside it carried the blaze of fire. "I have never been as weak as you think." The air in the room seemed to freeze. I could hear my own heart beating, each pulse echoing in that heavy silence. Elena was the first to break the quiet. She sprang up, the chair behind her screeching as it toppled to the floor. Her face turned ashen, eyes wide, voice choked with a mixture of anger and disbelief. You dare do this? After everything we've done for you? I looked straight at Elena, my gaze no longer avoiding hers. My voice was low and steady, no need to raise it, yet every word landed with weight. You don't care for me out of love. You do it for power. But you forget one thing. I am the final decision maker of my own life. Elena trembled and turned to David for help. But David just stood there, fists clenched, eyes bewildered. I could see the conflict inside him, stunned, ashamed, and unsure which side to take. Son, I said, my voice calm but full of authority, I don't blame you, but I am disappointed that you stayed silent when you should have spoken up. Sometimes silence is worse than cruel words. David lowered his head. Elena nearly collapsed, hands clenched together, lips moving but unable to form a reply. The guests began to shift uneasily. Some avoided my gaze, others looked at Elena with discomfort. Her pride, the thing that used to tighten my chest with humiliation, was now stripped bare before everyone. I straightened my back and walked slowly into the center of the room. For the first time in many years, I felt my hands steady. Inside me, a clear whisper rose. Freedom has returned. I stopped at the doorway and turned to look at them one last time. Never mistake the frailty of the body for the surrender of the spirit. The elderly may walk slowly, but we have not forgotten how to stand tall. No one replied. Only silence remained, and the stunned eyes of those who once believed they held my fate. I left that house on a clear morning. A small suitcase rested on the back seat of Harold's car. A cool breeze drifted through the window, carrying the scent of fresh grass and the chill of early winter. I sat quietly, watching the sunlight scatter across the long road ahead. Inside me rose a sense of relief, as if the burden I had carried for so long had finally been set down. My destination was a nursing home Harold had recommended. It was not the bleak place many imagine. On the contrary, it was a bright building with a garden full of roses and stone benches beneath old oak trees. There, I signed the contract myself, chose my own room, and decided how I wanted to live. Independence, which I thought I had lost, was once again in my hands. In the first days there, I met many people my age. They shared their stories, the highs and lows, the sorrows, and the simple joys that still lingered. I realized then that old age is not the end, but another journey, a stage of life where each person still deserves respect and the right to live as they choose. One evening, as the sunset spread golden light over the garden, I sat down to write a few lines in my notebook. I wrote for myself, but also as a message to anyone who might be in the same situation. Never let anyone strip away your right to decide your own life, no matter your age. Others may see you as weaker, but true strength lies in a spirit that refuses to yield. Family only has meaning when it is rooted in respect, not in contempt. I closed the notebook and lifted my gaze to the sky turning deep purple. In that moment, I smiled. No more bitterness, no more humiliation. Only calmness remained, and a steady belief that I had regained the most precious thing of all, the right to live on my own terms.